yesterday, you know that Bhagavan was taken to Gokula and Yogamaya was brought back and left there. And of course, as I told you, the guards immediately he was brought back. Yogamaya started shouting and crying and crying. So the guards woke up and they ran to Kamsa, and the Kamsa, without any thinking of anything, he was always thinking, where will he come, how will he come, when will he come, where, why, who. He took up his sword, he didn't take his crown, he didn't even wear proper clothes. He ran through the streets in the middle of the night and reached there and went to this thing. And Devaki hugged her baby and said, "Oh brother, please spare me at least this one. You have killed 6 of my sons like flames. And now at least this is a daughter. You were supposed, your killer is supposed to be a boy, not a girl. So at least spare her to me," he said. So Kamsa says, "I don't care whether it's a boy or girl. It is your 8th child, and I shall kill him. So kill her." And he snatched the child from her hands and lifted it up to thrash it on the stone on which he had killed all the other 6 children. But she slipped from his grasp and flew up to the air, and there she showed herself in all her divine form, Ashtabhuja, 8-armed one, with all beautiful garlands and everything. She was looking so beautiful. And she laughed and she said, "Oh fool," she said, "your killer is already born. What good will it do to you to kill me? Your killer is already born, and you will never escape him." And thus saying, she she disappeared. So afterwards, of course, Kamsa didn't know what to do. He was very quite contrite actually, and he released Devaki and Vasudeva and told them to go home, but it was much too late. Then he went home. To the next morning, he called his all evil counselors together and said, "This is what's happened." So they said, "Oh, if that is so, the only way we can do this, we will scour the whole countryside within a radius of, say, 100 miles and kill every baby who has been born either 10 days before or about a month ago." So they said, "Don't worry. Every child born within about a month, we will see that they are killed, and you will be free from all problems." So Kamsa agreed to this and let loose a reign of terror, and was guilty of the most heinous crime of infanticide, and which is one of the highest crimes of all, of killing infants. And all these different asuras went round all the outlying districts. I told you the Adavas had already fled to all the outlying districts. So these asuras now started scouring the whole countryside. Wherever they heard that a baby has been born, they would go and kill it. And so now we will go on to the what's happening in Gokula, because in Gokula just the opposite. There had been happiness, and Gokula had become the abode of Shri, all auspiciousness, and they were all delighted to hear that their chief had got a son. They remembered that it might have been a girl. Then they thought, "Oh well, maybe we were mistaken." So so they were all so happy. Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So now we have the Gobas and Gopalas and all discovered that there was the little baby with they thought was a girl was actually a boy. So they were all delighted, and they rushed to their chieftain's house, all of them bringing little gifts like little butter and little milk and little pots of curd and so on. Because that was all they really had. So they were so delighted, and then they were so happy over this. In the meantime, there was, as we heard before, Kamsa had ordered all babies in that district to be killed. And the person he chose to kill was a demoness called Putana. Now Putana took on the beautiful lady, and she meandered her way through the one and sole street of Gokula. And they were surprised. Everybody looked at her in amazement, because Strangers were very rare in that small village, as you can imagine. And such a beautiful woman, and totally unaccompanied. Who is this? Who is she? They kept on whispering to each other. But without any hesitation, she went towards the chieftain's house, and there she saw the little baby, and without asking, she simply took it up and put it on in her lap and started feeding it. Yashoda and Rohini were so flabbergasted, they didn't know now, how can we stop? This woman seems to be a very great soul. How can we tell her not to do this? So they just were too frightened even to tell her not to do it. Now Bhagavan of course was waiting for this, and he thought to himself, look, at least when I came to this Gokula, the place where they have so much of milk, I thought I'll be given lots of milk and butter. The very first thing they made them for me is some poison. So anyway, he said, and it is said that when she took him up and looked at him, he quickly closed his eyes. Kapata balagan, he is not a real baby, he's pretending to be a baby. He quickly closed his eyes because he thought, even she, the wicked killer of babies, even she would totally change her mind if she looked into his glorious eyes, and she would think, no, I can't kill him. So then his leelas would not go on. So he quickly closed his eyes, and she put him to her breast, and he started sucking with gusto. And then he sucked, and very soon she found that not only was he sucking milk, but he was sucking her very lifeblood out of her. And she started crying and yelling, oh, leave. And he never left her, because he thought to himself, anyone who has caught my feet, anyone who is carrying me, I will never leave them, even if they want me to leave them. Once I have them in my grip, I will never leave them. So though she thrashed about, and then she ran out of the house, and there she took on her gigantic form. And at last, when her lifeblood was totally sucked out, she fell and she crushed many of the trees and little huts which were all around. With a great roar, she fell down. All the gobas and they didn't know what is happening. What's happening here? Such unusual things after the baby has arrived. So they rushed out and found, where's our baby? What's happened to him? What is this monster has come here, and what is she trying to do to our baby? And there, on top of that monstrous figure, there was this little blue baby gurgling and chuckling and throwing out his arms and playing around over there. So the gopis, they said they put up a ladder, they had to take a ladder and climb on it, and then they rescued the baby and brought him down, and they said, has something happened to you, my little baby? What did she do to you? They quickly bathed him in a cow's urine, and they quickly waved the dust from the hooves of a cow, they sprinkled all over him, and they bathed him and gave him at that time. Now before that, after the festivities were over, Nanda Gopa had made a trip to Mathura, because every month all these Gopalas and everybody had to give some taxes. And what taxes could they give for things? They had no money. So they would take tax in the form of butter and milk and curd and a huge cart. He would put everything in a cart, and he had gone to Mathura. Now Vasudeva heard that Nanda had arrived, and he was so anxious to know about it. Some news of both his children, both Balarama. No, they had not had any names so far, you must remember, but both his babies were there. So he ran to meet Nanda and said, how are you? And Vasudeva was normally not a jealous man at all, but for once he was really jealous when he saw Nanda and asked him, and Nanda Gopa said, yes, they are fine, they have lovely babies, yes. And Vasudeva congratulated him that at this late age, Yashoda was already over 40, and Nanda was well over, almost 50. When this is at this late age, you have managed to get a son, a baby, and a son at that. I congratulate you, and so on. He said, though his heart was really filled with envy, that this man should enjoy what by rights I should be enjoying. And then he said, but he had heard, of course, that Kamsa had ordered all babies to be killed. So he told Nanda, please don't tarry here and waste your time. Go back immediately, because I fear there are some portents which show that everything is not well in Gokula. So Nanda was terrified when he heard this, and he quickly left, having left his taxes there, he quickly left. And when he left, in the meantime, here, after Podana had been killed, now how to this, she had fallen in the middle of that little village. And what they had to take her out somewhere. And how could they take her out? So they chopped up her body into little bits, and they transported it out to the village, and they were burning it. Just as Nanda came along, he was burning it. But an amazing thing, out of the smoke arising of that killer of infants, the beautiful smell of sandalwood came out of that. And Nanda was amazed. Where is this lovely perfume of sandalwood coming? And he went there and he heard this story, and he was quite terrified. And he went and said, he said, be very careful with the children. They're very precious. Be very careful with the children. So then, what could they do? Anyway, another time, his monthly birthday, when the star Rohini came again, 3 months, I think. Because before 3 months, babies are not taken out of the house. It's only after 3 months that they take them. So the third monthly birthday was a festive occasion. So then Yashoda had made all sorts of nice, interesting things, and they had invited all the other gopis and gopalas, and Krishna had been bathed, and he was anointed with all sorts of, and then she thought, she was looking around for a place, because the whole hut was filled with people. So she looked around for a safe place to put the child in, and then they have these huge carts where they keep all the butter and jars and all that. So she said, let me put him under that. She made a little bed and said, I'll put him here. So then he will be away from people walking around. And she told the little boys, please keep an eye on him. I'll just come in a minute or two. I've just got some work in the kitchen. So off she went. Very soon later, she heard a huge, horrendous noise. Tuck, 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 tuck. As if of wood being thrown about. And she rushed there to find that the whole cart had collapsed, and even the things on that, and all the bits of wood were flying here and there. And she hurriedly looked, where's the baby? Where's the baby? And there the baby, he was saying, and chuckling away and sitting in there. She said, what's happening? How did this cart break? What happened? Who came here? She turned to the boys and said, the boys very innocently said, this baby, I think it was wanting milk, and he kicked with his little foot, and that's how the cart broke. So these children, really, these boys make up the most amazing tales. Of course, this could not have, but anyway, she was only happy that her baby was safe. Actually, the Asura called Shakatasura. Shakata means only cart. Asura who had entered this in the form of the cart, and he was the one. Many Asuras were roaming around trying to kill babies. So then he's the one who did this particular bit of mischief. So then they took him off, and they were extra careful with him. Then another day, she was happily feeding him and sitting and having looking at his beautiful face and feeding him. At that time, a huge dust storm, Lu, what they call North India, very frequent Lu. It's actually at about this time of the year. So the dust came through the whole village, and nobody could see anything. I mean, it was so. Sometimes it happens like that. You can't even see an inch in front of you because of the dust, and it gets in your eyes. And Yashoda also had gotten, and she was covering her baby. And when it somehow subsided, she looked around and the baby was gone. Where's this baby? How can the baby? It must have been taken off by the wind, and there was a huge hue and cry. Actually, Asura called Trinavartan. Trinavartan had come in the form of a storm like this, a dust storm. And he had lifted the baby and taken him off. So then he carried him far out beyond the village. And at that time, he suddenly started feeling something, choking sensation on his throat. It was a little baby who had caught hold of him around his neck and was slowly choking him to death. So he cried out and took out his enormous form, reverted to his enormous form, and eventually fell down dead. This time it was the Gopas, because it was quite far away. By the time the Gopis ran, the Gopas had already reached, and they saw this child looking like a little blue sapphire, right, sitting on top of this enormous figure. And they ran forward and had to get ladders and so on. And they took the infant back, and they didn't know. They didn't know what was happening to this child like this. All the time something or other. So then they went back, and then you see the beautiful little of Krishna, because now they had started the crawling stage. They were already crawling stage. And they were adorned. They had nothing much, but they would be adorned with some jewel, and on the anklets they would have. And he would run forward, and the anklets will tickle, 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 and he looked back to see who's following me, pretending that he didn't know anything about it. Of course, it was his own anklets which were making the sound. And after that, they were here, there, everywhere. Sometimes she found him looking over the well. See, so I should tell you about naming ceremony before this. So actually, before we go into this. So the naming ceremony had been done after that 3 months, you see. So they didn't know whom to call. At that time, Garga Muni, who was known for being the preceptor of the Yadavas, he had come to this thing. And Nanda requested him to do the naming ceremony of both the children. So Garga said, look, everybody knows I'm the Guru of the Yadavas. And if Kamsa hears that I have been here and I have given the names to your children, he will suspect the worst. As it is, he suspects. He's always sending all these asuras around. So we'll do one thing. We won't make this a big event. Usually a naming ceremony, they'll call a whole village and give a feast and all. We'll do it quietly inside the cowshed. So quietly he did inside the cowshed. He took Rohini's child in his lap first, and he was a big, strong child, So he said, he shall be called Balarama. He's very strong, and also he's capable of delighting people. So he said, so we will call him Balarama. Then he took this little fellow in his arms, and he was looking at it and wondering what name to give him. So Krishna looked at his long beard, was tickling his chest. So Krishna, little foot, he just pulled his beard as if to say, don't you dare give me any stupid little name, Salkintu, Mintu, Binchu and all of that. Give me a real good name, which will show it, by which everybody will know me forever. So Garga thought for a minute, and he looked into his beautiful eyes and was lost forever. And he said, Krishna, Krishna. Krishna is the name for him. Karshadidi, Krishna, he who is capable of enticing, of driving into oneself. That is Karshadidi, Krishna. Therefore, Krishna is a word for you. And then he went on to, Garga was also an astrologer. So he gave a small little account of what this baby would be like. He said he's actually is a form of Vishnu himself. And anyone who worships, who is good to him, will be blessed, and anyone who is not good to him, they will be punished. And he is a great he will attain great renown. And since he was also son of Vasudeva at some previous birth, he will also be known as Vasudeva. And so many nice things about Krishna. Gave a small smile. He said, aha, well, he was quite happy that he was, because now it looked as if he had permission from the astrologer himself to do as much mischief as he could, because he had told that anyone who was mean to him would be punished. So now this was a good opportunity for him to do whatever he wished. So that was the time he had got. Only then after that children started running around, and poor Yashoda, she was not that young, she was, and I mean, she was, according to all our standards, I guess she was very young. She was only over 40, but still, she had no time for anything in the house. Every minute of the day, she'll be running here, and once, as I said, he will take a knife in his hand, and she'll scream with terror and take it from him. Then she would run to the cow and remove the calf, and then suck the milk straight from the udder. And she knew this was one of the most dangerous cows. Actually, she was not known for her good temper, this cow. So then she ran to get him, and by that time she saw the cow had turned round and was licking his little bottom and feeling very happy that he was drinking milk from her. And thus he was so delightful, because they had no concrete pavements or anything. So all the time they were in the dust and dirt and crawling about here and there. They went into the most delightful mischief, and they delighted the whole of other people who would come. All the other women would, after they finished their work, they would all come around and to watch Yashoda's baby. And after some time, he started to toddle. That was the end of it. Bad enough when they could only crawl, but now when they started to walk on their feet, there was no end to the mischief they would do. And endless complaints also, endless complaints. All the gopis would come and tell her, "Oh mother, your son has come to our house and he stole our butter. With greatest of difficulty, I just finished putting my baby to sleep," and he would come and pinch her and wake her up and make her cry. Krishna looked and gave a knowing look. She was the child he had pinched was Radha, and he was telling her, "Why are you sleeping like this when I'm around? Wake up, wake up, wake up! It's time to wake up and go into all the wonderful plays that we are going to enact for this in this village." So then all the time. So Yashoda couldn't believe it. This child, I feed him so well over here, and why is he going to your people and all these people and stealing? I don't understand. So Yashoda said, "You do one thing. You please give him as much butter as he wants. Don't." So they said, we never deny him anything he wants, but still he'll come behind and steal. So Krishna, was thinking, when I went to beg from, Bali, Bali had told me a person who once, a person who begs from me once, he will never ever have to beg again, because I'm such a great soul. So he had sworn at that time, if I have already begged once from Bali, but he was a great Raja, why should I beg from these little, cowherd girls? I'd rather steal from them. So that's why apparently he never begged from them, but he always stole. So they were really, it was and then the mother said, "All right, do one thing. Why don't you? I'll give you some nice pots." They had only mud pots. You hang it up high on the thing so that he won't be able to get it. So he said, "Mother, we have done that also." You know what he does? He brings all his friends along, and they bend like that, and one on top of the other, and Krishna alone will climb right on top. And even then, if he can't reach it still, he'll poke it with a stick and make a little hole, and he'll stand like that. So the butter or the buttermilk will pour into it, and then he'll jump down, the other one will open his mouth, and so on. It goes on like this all the time. So then the father promised them, "Look, I will do something." She couldn't really quite believe all this. She thought surely these gopis are making all this up. Because how can, this little child is all the time sitting here. Actually, I find him all the time here. He's hardly ever He's always around, playing around here. And you're complaining that he comes to your house. So one day, one gopi said, he said, I'll tell you what, I'll catch him when he comes. So Yashoda said, yes, catch him and bring him. So she caught him and put him inside a chest and locked up, a huge big chest, and locked it up. And said, you stay there till I am free. And then she finished her work and she took the chest with great difficulty. She lugged it up the little hill which came to Nanda's house. She said, there he is, there's your son. Now see, check for yourself whether it's him or not. So Yashoda said, okay, let's see. And he opened this thing. Who should jump out but this lady's own daughter was inside. So she said, what's wrong with you? What's wrong with your eyes? Don't you see it's your daughter you have locked up, not my son? So she said, I'm 100% certain I locked up your son and not my daughter. I don't know how he plays all these tricks. So then it was like that. In those days it was children were allowed to suck, breastfed until they were 4 and 3, 4, 5 even. So one day he was sleeping, and then Yashoda early morning. So Yashoda had so many chores in the kitchen, so she went off. Even though she had not yet given him his early morning breakfast feed, pre-breakfast feed. So she went down and she was doing some work over there and boiling some milk and so on. And that time Krishna woke up, and he was furious when he found his mother was not beside him. Where has she gone, leaving me, not giving me my milk in the morning? So he toddled around after her and found her busy with them. Then and he was pretended tears were rolling down his eyes. And yes, the last night's collyrium was all black things, and his little red lips in a little pout. Oh, you haven't given me any milk. So he made such a deal, and his little head, she was to, tie it up with a little thing like that, just a little knot. And then, his curls were all over him, and he's such a lovely picture that she couldn't do anything. She just ran to him, hugged him, and sat down, and they were both baby and both the child and mother were having a delightful interlude. She was watching him as he was sucking her breast and rocking him and crooning to him. Just then she heard a hiss from the kitchen. They didn't have milk boilers, but milk, when it starts rising up, there's a hissing sound. So she put him down and ran without saying anything. She just pulled him out and pushed him down and ran to catch the milk naturally. So he was horrified. She's dumped me like a sack of potatoes. What did she think I am? Who did she think? And she was so angry. And she had been sitting and making some curds and churning some butter. And there she was saying, I'll show her, give her a good lesson. And there was a churn lying there. Actually, Bhagavatam says that he took a stone from somewhere and hit but I don't think he could have done that. I think he took that churn, which is right there beside him. Why should he go hunting for a stone or something? So she took that churn and gave one whack to that. They have all mud pots, So all the milk and the butter and the buttermilk came rushing out. Then she was aghast. Oh my God, she's going to come back and meet me when she sees what I've done. So he quickly told her. He said, but then he looked back. There's the butter there. So he came back and grabbed a whole handful of butter and toddled off. And then he hid behind a motor. Those days they have threshing motors. It's in the shape of an hourglass. And they put the grain inside and they, that's how they didn't have mills for threshing, so that's how that is a threshing god. It's a very, very heavy stone, very heavy. Anyway, so he hid behind that. And Yashoda came back and she was furious. Look at him. What has he done? Let me find him. She took a stick and said, where is he? Krishna, where are you? Where are you? She went round, but he was hiding behind. But his little peacock feather was waving on top of that grinding stone. So she went to him and said, naughty boy, why have you done this? And I'll give you a real beating. Then he looked at her so piteously, and tears and the butter all smeared on her. So she just didn't have the heart to beat him. She said, "Okay, what I'll do, but you deserve to be punished for this. I will tie you up to this motor." So then she caught him in one hand and ran in search for a rope, and she got some rope, and she made him stand there, and then she tied 2-3 times, and then came. But it was three, at least 3 fingers. It was this much. She couldn't bring it down, back to tie him. So she asked somebody, "Please get me more rope. I can't leave this." So somebody else brought some rope, and she tied that also, and she went round and round. Again, 3 fingers short. So she got all the rope in the house, and by this time all the gopis had come round, and they were laughing at her. "Serve you right," she said. "You never believe us when we tell you whatever the mischievous boy he is. Now serve you right. Now you know what he's been up to." But every time that this poor Yashoda, she started perspiring. She didn't know what was happening. How is it that I can't tie this child? This, as Sri Shuka says, he who cannot be caught even in the mind of the great rishis who are meditating on him for years, this gopi was able to tie because he allowed himself to be tied. At last, seeing his mother perspiring and looking very sad, he allowed himself to be tied, because he was tied with the rope of her love and not the physical rope. So eventually she tied him up, and then again she got her present, because all the other gopis were watching and tittering and saying, "Look at her." So then she said, "You just sit there. I will, until I finish all my work. Until then you have to be punished. You just sit there." And off she went. Now, thank God, Krishna said, "I have taken the precaution to put some butter into that hole of that, So then he said he was starving. He hadn't had enough milk and hadn't had anything proper breakfast. And look at her tying me up. Anyway, he had taken this precaution. So he sat down, and immediately some little kittens and baby monkeys and all would come. And he'd throw a few to all of them, and eventually the whole butter was finished. Now it is so boring to be tied up. I have 100 things mischief that I can do around here. So then he looked around, what could he do? Then he saw 2 Nagarjuna trees. That's a kind of a tree, huge trees there. Far away in the distance, he saw 2 trees growing like this. There was just a small gap in between them, but their roots were almost as if they were together. So he thought to himself, "Aha," he said, "now this is an experiment I can do. Can I pass through that gap of those trees? Maybe I can. Anyway, let me try." So off he went, and he started going towards that. And this stone, never in his life had it been treated so badly. There it was being pulled like this, and blum, 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 like that. The poor stone was being dragged. Very heavy stone, mind you. And off he went towards these trees, and he proved his point that a little baby, a child like him, could pass with ease through this, and he went across. But what about this fat stone behind? It could not pass neither easily or with difficulty through this gap. So the stone was properly stuck in between these 2 trees. So he gave a little tug like that, and the 2 trees came with a huge, horrendous noise. The 2 trees came crashing down. And in their stead stood 2 Gandharvas who were really the sons of Kubera, Yakshas, the sons of Kubera, Nalakubera and Manigriva, their names were. And they stood and they praised him and said they had been cursed by Narada again, in order to give them, because they were filled with pride. Kubera was a very, very richest man, like Mukesh Ambani and all that. I don't know his children. What are his children like, I wonder? But anyway, these 2 children were very, very, very proud of their wealth, and they never bothered to they just wasted their time going to from woman to woman, and they were so. Once they were bathing with some nymphs in the lake, and Narada happened to be passing there, and the nymphs had the decency to come to cover themselves, but these boys did not even bother, and they were standing stark naked in front of him. So Narada cursed them that you are so wooden-headed, you will turn into trees. And then they begged to be saved from this fate, and he said, all right, and during the time of Krishnavatara, you will be released from your curse. So they were the two, and then they were the two boys who were, make us sit down, please. So then they said, they extolled him and said, please forgive us, because, allow us, give us the boon we want is that, our senses are really meant, it's our senses which have led us astray, our senses of, try to drag us into the world, and these senses are these things. So give us the boon that our eyes will see nothing but you, our ears will hear nothing except your melody, that nose will smell nothing except the perfume of your tulsi of your feet, and our tongue should also be able to taste only your essence in everything we eat. And they said, because they said that the tongue is the greatest, our greatest enemy is the tongue itself, because it makes us so much, because it can do two double things, double act it has. It has both tasting and talking. And by our talk we have made so many enemies because of our tongue. In fact, they said there's a story that, one day the tongue told the teeth that, you're so great, you're true karma yogis. You bite and chew and masticate, and therefore you're doing such a great thing for this human being that because they can eat the food. Without you, they can't eat the food. So the teeth said, no, you're far superior to us. One word from you and I will get knocked out. If the tongue says some insult to some person, so that man will box us and all our teeth will drop out. So that you are much more, you're superior to us, said the teeth. So he said, so let us always be in control of our senses, and let it all be dedicated only to your glory. Let us only sing your glories, your praises, and see and hear and touch nothing but you. So he blessed them. In the meantime, of course, hearing this horrendous noise, the whole of Gokula had come running up. What is it? What happened? And Nanda saw the child and said, how did he happen to be here? What is this rope round his middle? In the meantime, the Devas were extolling him and calling him the name of Damodara, and because he who has a rope round his udaram or around his waist. That is how he got that name, Damodara. So they all came, and Yashoda very, very sadly said, actually I'm the one who tied him up there. You tied that little baby to this huge threshing stone. What's wrong with you? And he berated her for all her. So Yashoda was feeling rather upset. However, they they were surprised how this child manages to be unscathed through all these things. Then another day, the children, the big children had all gone up in a berry, those little berries which he loved. Krishna loved those little berries, those black, they looked like his eyes actually, black, dark, little black berries, growing on a tree. Jamun. So then, the small boys were told to stand down, and Krishna was the only small one around there at that time. So they told him, we will throw down these bunches of fruit, and your job is only to collect it and put it in the basket. You are not to eat it. You remember, we'll come down and we'll share it equally between all of us. So Krishna, oh yeah. But then you see, the moment they started putting, he would cram with both hands. 1, 2, 1, 2. He didn't even wait for one to eat and put up with it. 1, 2, 1, 2. So somebody, Balarama, somebody looked down. Oh, look, Krishna, he's eating up all the fruit. We won't get anything if he's such a greedy little fellow. So they all scrambled down again and caught him and took him to Yashoda and said, if they told her that he's eating fruit, she said, poor darling, let him eat all the fruit he wants. But so they said, no. You know, Yashoda, your son is eating mud, he said. So Yashoda, man, eating mud? Krishna, have you eaten mud? Krishna couldn't say anything because his mouth is full of jamun. So he said, you haven't eaten mud? Then open your mouth, he said. Let me see if there's mud in your mouth. So Krishna decided, oh well, if she wants to see mud, I will show her plenty of mud, he said. Opened his mouth and the whole world he saw over there. Whole world. With the forests and the rivers and this and that and Gokulam itself, and there in that Gokulam there was Yashoda standing and there was a Krishna standing, and there inside that Krishna's mouth was another world and another world, and inside that Krishna's mouth another world and another Gokulam and another ad infinitum. There are some places in Haridwar and all, there's a place where they have mirrors facing each other. So when you look into a mirror, there's a row of same things are being repeated and repeated and repeated and repeated over there. So similarly, this was because as Krishna thought, let her see all the mud she wants. I mean, she just wanted to see my little bit of mud in my mouth. I'll show her the whole world. So then her head was reeling. She didn't know what it was. What is this? What is this? And she is this child? What sort of a child is it? She was so bemused. And the children all waiting for her, to scold Krishna and give him good spanks. They were all waiting. Actually, she just took up her little darling and hugged her and kissed him. The other boys were totally disgusted. They can never say with these adults. We never know how they react to all these things. So they all trotted off. So then they all went off and they started all the other this thing. Then next, Vrindavana okay. Because the next chapter is that they were all so anxious that this whole of this Gokula, every time after he was born, all the time there was something strange happening in Gokulam. So they decided they should shift, and that is the next portion we will take. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So there is one more Leela of Bhagavan's Leela to be finished in Gokulam before they go on to Vrindavana. That is, one day he was all alone in the house actually, and an old lady had come up with a basket of berries on her head, and she called him and said, he loves berries, so he knew the goodness of berries, I think. So then he went there and she said, come my precious, I'll give you some lovely berries. So she put some berries, and some were sparkling black like his eyes, some were red like his lips, some were like yellow like his clothes. She filled up his tiny little hands with berries. And before she could turn round to take more from the basket, she turned back and he had all gobbled it all up. Then again and again and again and again she kept filling it until her basket was totally empty. And still the boy looked at her with adoration and said, yeah, as if he's asking for more. Then he said, then she said, I've finished all I have for you, dear. Now, what should I do? He said, wait a minute, I have to give you something in return. She said, no, you don't have to give me anything at all. He said, no, wait. So he ran to where they keep all the grain. And he took 2 fistfuls of grain, full in his tiny little palms. And he looked at it carefully as he went towards her, and slowly they were all disappearing. And eventually when he put it into her palms, there was hardly a few grains left. And with great difficulty, biting his lip and looking with great intensity. And he said, have you had enough? Do you want more? She said, no, my precious, I don't want anything. This is the most wonderful gift you can give me. And she hugged him and kissed him. And she took her basket and went off. By the time she reached home, the basket was so heavy, she couldn't put it down. She put it down and she saw that it was filled with jewels, exactly like the colors of the berries that she had given him. Onyx and emeralds and sapphires and diamonds and rubies and what is that? That yellow one? Topaz. All these filled with jewels. And her eyes just filled with tears because she didn't know what to say. So that was one of his last leelas before they left Gokula. At that time, as you know, when after the saving of the Nalakobara and Manikoda and Nalakobara, all of them sat together and said, this place has some evil eye. So let us get away from it, because the child is constantly being threatened with all sorts of unknown horrors. So then they asked a man called Ubananda. He said, yes, let's move on. In any case, they were nomadic tribe. They would never stay and cultivate a land and kill it until it's, the soil is totally down. Once they'd finished sort of cultivation, maybe for a year or two or something, they would pack up their troubles and they'll shift to the next grassland, because they were actually only nomadic, and they were cowherds. So they didn't do much of agriculture as such. So then they decided they'll go. And there's a beautiful description which Sri Shuka gives about the carts going. And first of all, the old people, and they're put in the carts, and Rohini and Yashoda with the two children in their carts. And they're so delighted. All the gopis would be singing all the songs about Krishna's leelas, and they were watching all the beautiful sights here and there. And at twilight only, as Sandhya Samaya, they reach Vrindavan, and the beauties of Vrindavan is given. The forest, far ahead is a hill of Govardhan, and along the sides there's a whole forest of Vrindavana, and there the Kalindi, another name for Yamuna, she's flowing on the other side. So, and full of lush meadows. This is what the cowherds wanted. They wanted grass for their cows, and they wanted some, fodder for them, which you would get from the forest. And this is exactly the type of land they really liked. So they said, come on, let's pitch our camp here, and they jumped down, and within a few hours, as usual, they were very clever at this. They had pitched their camps, and they started staying there. Now it appears that the Lord has reached 5 years old, so he is allowed to go with the calves to look after calves into the forest. So with other little 5-year-olds, they used to go to the forest with the calves, and they had a wonderful time. He played, everything he did in the life of Krishna, whatever he did, he threw himself with great enthusiasm, whether it was playing leapfrog with the children, or dallying with the gopis, or being the king of anything he did, he threw himself. It appeared as if it was that, and that alone was the greatest thing that he had ever done. So everybody felt so happy when they were, because he was always so centered, that most of us, we are doing something and our thoughts are somewhere else. So then these children, they loved to play around. They would carry little sticks. All of them had a stick, then a flute, cut out of the bamboos, and they had a little, bottom, like, their mothers would tie their lunch. They had no tiffin boxes at that time. So then they tie them in a little bundle like that, and they would put it on the stick and keep it there. And the other one would be on another thing on the waist, and the flute would be on their waist. And they would sing, and merrily they would go into the forest, and they had a lovely time. Sometimes when they saw birds going, they would run in the shadow of the birds, and then they would play in the river, and then they would pretend to be peacocks, and they collected peacock feathers and would stick them on their hair. That's how it became a fashion, because Krishna started the fashion actually. And he was extremely contemporary in everything he did, very modern. Not like Shiva who went to others. Very modern. Whatever he did, it was done to perfection. He must look, if he was a man, he has to be the perfect man. If he's a child, he has to be the perfect child. Very naughty though, not, some of the things he did. may not be tolerated by most mothers. However, and at one time somebody asked them, how was it? And it is like that. This supreme come down in human form. He did everything for them. Even when he came back, the gopis and gopalas would treat him like a little doll. He would dance for them. He would fetch and carry for them. Hey, Krishna, get that. In a little stool. Great difficulty. He'll bring a little stool and keep it for them. And then he will pretend he was a wrestler and slap his thighs and do all sorts of funny things he would do. And they would be so enthralled. So somebody asked us, what is this amazing karma that these people have, that the Lord of all the worlds has become a plaything for them? So Gargamuni had already told Nanda that he is actually, these people are actually the two of the Vasus, who are known as Drona and Dhara, and they have taken birth here because they have some karma in them. They want to be able to look after Krishna, and such a great experience which even his own parents have never had. They never had this joy of the childhood and boyhood of Krishna. You really feel so sad that they were denied totally that joy of his most beautiful years. So then they started going now. After that, and then more asuras came. The first one, once they were with the calves, and suddenly they all noticed one calf was behaving in a very peculiar fashion, frisking its tails and doing funny little things. So Krishna, of course, knew who it was. So, you see, the asura had thought, now every time we try and think of a new method of tricking him, it doesn't work. So let's pretend to be one of the calves, so that he won't suspect us, and then we'll catch him and kill him. So they had come that's called Vatsasura, and he came as a calf, but when he was running towards him, he caught him by the legs and twirled him around and threw him up, and he crashed in the trees and fell down and died, and he took on that form. At that time, all the flowers, actually the gods came and rained flowers on his head. And the children asked, why flowers are falling on your head, Krishna? So he looked at them, no, when I threw him up, the flowers from the trees are coming down on my head. So then, that was one of the asuras which he had. Then next was something called Bhagasura. Bhaga means crane, these big ones, not the small ones. The Bhagasura, he came in the form of a bhaka, or a stork, and he came towards Krishna to try and poke him or prick him. So Krishna avoided him, and then the next time he came with his beak open so that he would swallow him. So Krishna took hold of both his beaks and tore it apart and threw it away. That was the end of that asura. Next asura who comes along there was asura who took the form of a boa constrictor, a huge snake, Aghasura he was called, huge snake. His head would reach the clouds and his tongue was lolling out. So these innocent boys looked at it and thought, oh, somebody has made a new road here. Let us go and find out where this road leads to. So all unknowingly, they went into the mouth of this Aghasura, but he didn't close his mouth because Krishna had not entered. So he's waiting for Krishna with open mouth. So after some time, Krishna knew what was happening, so he decided, I will go and rescue them, and he went inside. And of course, he made himself bigger and bigger and bigger, so that the snake could not breathe anymore, and he burst its thing, and he came out. All the children came out alive. But Sri Shuka says, but it's a funny thing is that this story of Aghasura was not heard by the people, his parents in Gokula, till 1 year later. So Parikshit said, how is that possible? Why is it that the children did not go and tell the story? He said, because I'll tell you. Now all the children when they go, now Krishna again is the one who started this idea of picnic in the woods. Come on, let's go for a picnic in the woods. So all of them would take I told you, their little, all goodies, whatever they could afford, they would put, and they would sing and dance and go there. So then Krishna said, come on, we'll have this nice picnic. Let's all sit in a circle. Come on, children, all of you sit in a circle. And he also sat in a circle and sat in the middle. And they all took out their little things and they started to eat. And all the other boys looked eagerly and greedily at Krishna, because Krishna was a chieftain's son. And obviously he had a few extra goodies which they didn't have. Krishna knew what was going on in their mind. So first of all, before he ate, he would give a little from his potlam to all of them, all around them. Then only he would eat. Now at that time, Brahma, the creator, he had heard about these asuras coming, and he thought, is it possible? Has the Supreme really taken? He knew he had installed him in his womb of Devaki, and he had asked him to come and take a human form and so on. But still he couldn't believe, because this child seemed so ordinary. He was playing around like ordinary children. So he said, let me test him. Is he really indeed the divine which he's supposed to be? So Brahma came, and he saw the child. He was what he did first. He whisked off the calves. Now, and he shut them up somewhere. Then he came back. In the meantime, the Gopala said, oh my, Krishna, the calves have gone, and we'll really get it from our parents. We go back with not even a single calf. So let's go and get him first. So Krishna said, no, you finish your lunch, my dear boys. I will go and get the calves. So off he went. He had a half-eaten ball of rice on his hand, and this flute stuck in his waist, So he didn't even finish the ball. He ran after the calves, so they thought. In the meantime, Brahma came along, and so Krishna had gone, and he whisked off the Gopalas also. So then, when Krishna came back, he didn't find the calves, he didn't find the Gopalas, he didn't find any. He thought for a minute, he said, I see what it is all about. So then, in the evening it said, before he went, that same Chatuslogi Bhagavatam which was told to you all in the second skanda, Yavanaham yadhabhavo yadruva gunakarma tadaiva tattvajnanamastu. I am that alone. I was existed before creation, I existed after creation, I exist during creation. I alone am that aham, that I, which is in everything. That and that alone am I. And this is the truth of all this, that everything is Krishnamayam, that the Lord alone exists. That was given as a very graphic teaching. It's one of the most beautiful teachings of the Krishna Leela. He took on the form of the Gopalas, he took on the form of the calves, he took on the form of the flutes, he took on the form of the little potlams they carried, he took on the form of the sticks, he took on the form of the peacock feathers. Every single detail of every child and every calf was Krishna and Krishna alone. And in this strange cavalcade went back in the evening to Gokula. And then a strange thing happened. Usually when this cavalcade comes back, all the mothers, both the cows as well as the human mothers, would run first to Krishna and hug and kiss him. Only then would they turn to their own children. This time, after a few days, this went on for a whole year. And this impersonation. So, only person who noticed this was Balarama. But slowly Balarama started noticing. This is a very strange thing, he said. Normally all the mothers would go and hug Krishna before going. Now every mother would go and hug her own child. Every cow would go and lick her own calf. And everyone seemed to be so happy with their own thing. What is it? There is some secret behind it. He started thinking what was happening. So then, now, 1 year, human year had passed already, but in the time of Brahma, it was hardly a minute only, just about a minute. So Brahma, having whisked off all these calves and the Gopalas, he said, now, let's see if he is really divine. Let's see what he's up to. Brahma came back and he couldn't believe it. The exact picture which he had seen a minute ago, according to him, there it was. The calves were eating grass on one side, the children were sitting in a ring on one, and in the middle there was Krishna with the half-eaten ball of rice, exactly the half-eaten ball of rice. There was a flute tucked into him, and he was looking. And so Brahma didn't know. He was totally bemused. My God, what is this? how this has happened? Is this really, this boy really must be the Supreme? And then he was totally bewildered. So Krishna gave him the divine sight, because without that divine sight, even Brahma would not be able to see this wonderful thing. Which you remember I told you, he gave that to Arjuna also. He took him to a mango tree and said, look, Arjuna, what are you seeing over there? Arjuna said, oh, a tree filled with mangoes. He said, look again. So he looked again and he saw a tree filled with Krishnas on a tree of Krishna. So here he shows the same thing to him. He suddenly saw everything is a form of Shanga Chakra Gada Padmam, everything, the whole, every single, the flute, the stick, the children, the cows, the calves, the little thing, everything was Krishnamayam. Krishnamayam is all they could see. And Brahma realized that indeed I have made a fool of myself. And of course, he didn't know what to do. So his famous stuti, which goes all, like all other stutis, is pure Vedanta, which all these stutis are pure Vedanta. Now, medite bravashe dadambraya, I can never, even though verses I know so well, when I have to say it, I forget half of them. So it's verse I know so well. Anyway, so he says here, he describes him. There he stands, this Gopala boy holding the half-eaten ball of rice, wearing this thing, and the peacock feather in his hand. He's got little, those red berries in the forest. Children used to take that and make, earrings for themselves. And they would anoint themselves with all sorts of, vegetable dyes. They do this, and they would, they didn't have much of no toys at all. So they would invent by themselves. Their powers of invention were increased because they had no toys. Nowadays, people have so many toys that they have no powers of invention at all, because and they're never satisfied with any of the toys. You have to get better and bigger and more intricate and more difficult toys, because to keep the child's interest, you see, because they're not allowed to think so much for themselves. Otherwise, even now I see in Gaja and all, in the village, how these boys are so sweet. They'll make their own little wheel, somehow they'll get from, and they'll trundle it around and up and down, and then they make a little, with some planks, they will, and then somehow they beg, borrow, steal some wheels, and that'll be their little car, and one boy will sit on it, and the other two will pull him up and down. They make all these things they make of themselves because they've never had a toy in their life. In fact, once nowadays when we are there, we get boxes of toys and clothes and so on. The first time I got that, and nice little teddy bear, I presented it to one little boy. He gave one look at it and screamed. He had never seen a teddy bear in his life before. He thought it was some strange animal. So he didn't like it one bit. So they're so innocent. They're totally unexposed to all the modern this thing. So that's how these boys also made their own games, had their own fun, and Brahma started, he extolled him as that, he who is the highest of the high, who exists before all time, and who is above all the gods. And to him, who is now the little Gopala boy, to him I pay my obeisance. And so he, with all his 4 heads, he bowed before he knew that a new, what should I say, God had come who would disperse all the other gods. And he bowed to him and begged him to forgive him, because this is a site this site, you might think this is, it's made up, and how can it be that all of, but actually we all have the same experience every day of our lives. When we sleep and we have a dream, say, we may dream that you are going in an aeroplane and there's a pilot is there, and the other passengers are there, and the plane is there, and we are, so many other things are going on. Waitress bringing us some nice coffee or a drink on the house. If it's on the house, everybody has it. The other drinks. So then but that happens, I think, only in business class. We economy classes don't get on the house things. So then all this, the bottle, the waitress, the pilot, the plane, and me also. Where have they come from? Out of the I inside me, no. I have created all this. It's my creation. They are not separate things. They are I and I alone, aham alone. That aham which I know is as I told you even before, every buffalo knows that he is. He doesn't know he's a buffalo, but he knows he is aham, I am. So every creature has that I in him, and that I creates this entire world for you in your dream. So why not this dream world of this cosmos, the universe? This world has been created by him alone. That Supreme alone has created this entire world of variegated colors and hues and differences, which we all see as different, but actually it's not different. The whole thing is he alone. So that aham, actually when we are sleeping, that alone exists. When we waken up, when we wake up, and that consciousness comes to the waking world, the aham becomes ahankara. The ego comes up, and then we discriminate, we judge, we do many things which are colored by our ego and our personality. So this is the whole study of Brahma, which he extols him. And at the end of that, that cavalcade, again the usual cavalcade of the little gopalas and the gopi, no, not the gopis, the calves and all the other accoutrements, they come back to Gokula. Now, the question which Parikshit asks is, what is it? He asks him, what is the reason? He asks him, what is the reason why these gopis and gopalas and the cows used to run to Krishna, and why were they running to their own children during the time when he was having this masquerade? So what is the reason for this, he says. So Sri Shuka tells him that usually the love of the self is the greatest of all loves. The wife loves her husband for the sake of her own self. Husband loves his wife for the sake of her own self. This is said in the Upanishads. Yajnavalkya tells this to his wife Maitreya. So he says, everybody loves only for the sake of their own selves. And even your own child, really speaking, you think it's your own child, but even that child is loved by you because of, it is something precious to yourself. Not because of anything else. That is the reason why you say. And here, Krishna is the self of all. He's not just your child. He's your very self. So surely that self should be loved more than your child. That self is the greatest of all loves that we have. So Krishna is the self of the whole universe. So that is why they used to run to Krishna before they ran to their own children. And that is why when Krishna became every other child and every other calf in that colony, they ran to their own children and their own calves because he was their self. That's as simple as that. He was everybody's self, he is. And therefore, that is the reason, he says, Sri Shuka says, that's the reason why this strange play came about. And it was only Balrama actually who noticed this. And when they went back, all the children ran to their parents. Oh, there was a huge snake in the forest today. And we all went to the snake. And Krishna went to the snake and he killed the snake. And today we are all back safe and sound. And this had happened 1 year ago. Which was only, for them it was as if it just happened that very day because of the Maya of this thing. So that Aghasura's story was recounted to in Gokula only 1 year, 1 human year after it took place. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So now we come to the next great Leela of Krishna in Vrindavana. After Brahma had finished his thing, again the children every day. Now it appears that he has reached the very hoary age of 6 years old. That is called as Kaumara. And so he was elevated to the role of looking after cows instead of calves. After 5, they looked after only calves. After that, cows. And what did that entail? They can go further and further into the forest. Otherwise, the small ones were allowed to tend their calves only somewhat closer to the settlement. But since they were 6, they were allowed to go quite far off, and they roamed about as they liked. And once the children told him, Krishna, there's a lovely forest here filled with, palmyra fruit. They're so sweet. So, but unfortunately we can't eat them because a terrible donkey there called the Enukasura, and he kills everyone on sight. He kicks them to death. So Krishna said, don't worry, we'll see what we can do about that. So he went into that, and he started... He kept, he rocked the tree until the ripe fruits came out. And when the other donkey Asura heard about this, he came flying up with all his friends. And of course, Krishna and Rama made short work of them. They just caught hold of their feet and threw them around and chucked them up the tree. And they brought down more bunches of the lovely fruit. And that evening, the children filled their stomachs with this fruit, and this palmyra fruit has a small, it has a slight intoxicating effect. So by the time this riotous group reached home, they were a bit totally intoxicated and laughing and singing at the top of their voices, even more than they used to do before. So then the description is about how Krishna, the gopis and the women who are left at home, they're always waiting anxiously till he comes. The whole day he's off. They can never see him as they used to do when he was a child, and he used to go all the time to their houses. So every day they wait anxiously for that time when it's Goduli time, it's called. When the cow, it's supposed to be a very auspicious time for anything you want to do. That's when the cows come back. In those days there are no roads or anything like that. So the dust rises up from the hooves of the cows. And he used to be bathed in that, the dust, the sun shining on that, and the dust rays will catch on the dust. So he looked as if he was enclosed in a golden thing when he used to come back, and his curls would be all awry and dusty, and then he also would be smudged, and he's been playing like everything all over the place, in all the forests and so that. But they do love to see that vision of him coming back at sunset with the following the cows. So they wait for that time. The whole day they would do their work and wait anxiously for that time, and he came back. So one day Krishna woke up very early. Before his brother could wake up, he jumped out and told the children, come on, let's go fast. Don't let Balarama wake up. Before he wakes up, he will quickly go, and I have something particular I want to do. Now this Kalindi river was, there's a spot in the Kalindi river which had a big sort of a trough in the middle of it. In that pool, there lived a very poisonous snake called Kaliya. Now Kaliya had full freedom to use that river as he liked. So nobody could drink from that water. Everybody had shunned it. Krishna had been told 100 times by his mother, Krishna, don't go near that Kalindi, don't go drink any water from there, don't do this and don't do that. Krishna said, all right, Mama, I won't do. I promise I won't do anything like that. So then, that morning, leaving Balarama behind, because he knew that Balarama is going to give more brotherly advice, which he was not interested in listening to, off he went with the children to the Kalindi. Before he could stop them, the cows ran forward, and they drank the water, and they all fell down dead, because the water was so poison. Nobody could drink it, and even the vegetation had pushed out further and further away from the banks of the river. Nothing could exist in that poisonous fumes. So Krishna was waiting for an opportunity. He knew that these poor cows and the calves, and the water was something very important for them naturally. Grass and water was their most important things. So he had decided to free them from this particular curse. So there was a kadamba tree which was somehow or other, leaves were all gone, it was half dead, but it was hanging over the pool. So Krishna promptly girded up his loins like that and slapped his thighs like a wrestler. He jumped onto the tree and went up on the tree, and he took one flying leap into the middle of the pool. Before the boys could even say anything, could stop him, he had jumped into the pool. Then some of the boys ran back and gave the news. And in Gokula also they had very omens. They could see that something horrible was going to happen. So they were all feeling very upset about it, and they were wondering what they should do. At that time, some of the boys came and said, "Look, Krishna has jumped into the Kalindi." You can imagine the distress of those people in the village, especially Yashoda and Nanda. They ran, crying and weeping, ran to try and rescue their little darling from this poisoned waters. And there, at that time, they saw that Krishna was when Krishna had been thrashing and making a big nuisance of himself in that pool, all the water was being disturbed. And Kaliya thought to himself, who is this who's disturbing my rest? He was having a good rest it was afternoon, I think. So he came up and he saw this child, and he curled himself round. I'll make mincemeat of him in a minute, he said, and he curled himself round. Now Krishna did nothing to free himself because he was waiting for a good audience before he could do anything. So he waited, and then all the Gopalas and all the his mother and everything, beating their breasts and crying, Krishna, Krishna. They had to stop Yashoda from jumping into the river. And so, of course, it was child's play for Krishna to get him, to free himself of Kaliya's hold on him. And after freeing himself, he nimbly leapt on his head, and he started this wonderful dance. Immediately, of course, whenever Krishna dances or anything is done, all these divine folk come around and they play their guitars or whatever they had, other things, I think. So they came along, all ready to, and he was waiting. Well, he must have some music, and therefore the musicians were ready up in the sky, and they said the chords were struck, and he started his dance. So strange, macabre dance, which is a little blue boy jumping from the head to head to head to head of this Kaliya. He's supposed to have many heads. So he kept on dancing, and in one hand he had this flute, and he was playing, and all the people were wonderstruck standing on the river, on the banks of the river and watching. And Krishna delighted in such scenes. He must have a good audience. Otherwise, what's the point in dancing and wasting my dance on these? So he must have it. So everybody was all ready, and he danced and danced and danced until one by one, this poor little heads of this snake, the eyes were gleaming at the beginning, red gleaming eyes, and his tongue was out and trying to lick the little boy here and there and trying for a hold on him. But slowly, slowly his eyes became dull and duller and duller, and his heads, one after the other, each head started drooping down and drooping down and drooping down. And eventually he was crushed, totally crushed, bleeding and grown. At that time, all his wives, he had hundreds of wives, all of them came down, and they started extolling Krishna as Supreme Infinite, who had taken on a form as that of a child. And they said, please, please leave us, leave our husband free, and please don't kill him. So he said, no, okay, I'm not interested in killing him, but the fact is that he's killing so many others. All those who are drinking, nobody can drink from the water. So many people have been killed by him. So what am I to do? That's why I wanted to teach him a lesson. So at last, Kaliya, his pride was duly humbled, and he begged Krishna, please allow me, save me. I mean, Kaliya's prayer is actually quite a unique prayer. He says, oh Lord, he says, you are the one who has given us such natures. Snakes and tigers and wolves and jackals, we've all got these, cruel natures thanks to you. So now why do you blame me for doing what I'm supposed to do? I'm supposed to bite a person when somebody comes near me. I should bite him. That's my dharma. So Krishna very neatly didn't reply anything at all to this, and he said, "Okay, Kaliya, you may go back to your original place." Kaliya and his wives were living in a island called Ramanaga. So he said, "You go back to that. That's the best place for you." He had been driven away from there by Garuda. He was a mortal enemy of snakes, the eagle, the mortal enemy of snakes. So Garuda, he said, he has driven him here away from this, and that's why I've come here. So he said, you go back to Ramanaga and stay there happily, and we will be freed from your curse over here, and you can also live happily over there. Nobody will bother you there. So Kaliya said, but how can I? That wretched Garuda will, on my way there, when I'm going there, he will peck me and my children and my wives, and he will surely kill us. So Krishna says, no. He will see the imprint of my foot on your head, and therefore he will spare you. He will not allow you. He will not kill you. So saying, he allowed Kaliya and his brood of wives and children, and quite an army they were. They all went back to their own island of Ramanaga, and the village of in Vrindavan was freed from this scourge of this, and once again the trees and the flowers and so on started to bloom. Once again the river cleared itself of its poison, and once again they could all enjoy this waters. Now Nanda and Yashoda and all the others were really scared that this child, even though he seems to be escaping miraculously from everything, surely he must have been, the poison may have entered into him. So what should we do? So they said, we're not going back to the village today, we'll keep awake. I told you, yes, it's the usual thing to, if you don't allow, if somebody has been bitten by poison, by a snake, you don't allow them to sleep, because once they sleep, they may never get up at all. So that's the rule, they never let them sleep for a whole night. So they all sat round, made a little this thing, and they sat round and they sang songs, and they were insisted on that Krishna would not sleep. Now Krishna also wanted to assure them in another way. And there at that time a huge forest fire was coming towards them, huge one. They all started crying and shouting, Krishna, save us. Boys had no doubt that their savior would save them from anything at all. So they always were quite unperturbed, when anything happened to them. So this whole fire was there, and little boy stood in front, opened his mouth, and the fire slowly goes into him. And this is another thing to assure his parents, because if you drink fire, if you can drink fire, that is, fire will put out any poison in your stomach. So that's another way he allowed. So in fact, you see that in all ways Krishna shows his superiority to all the ancient gods. The ancient gods. His conquest of fire in this, conquest of Indra's coming. What is the other things he did before? Varuna in Gokula. That is also only coming actually. So all the ancient gods, one by one, he shows his superiority towards them. Next you will see his conquest of Indra. So then at that time, of course, Balarama realizes why Krishna left him when he went off to do this particular leela of his, because he knew his brother would stop him. So that is the end of that particular leela, and we will be going into the next Pralamba. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So now we have finished Kali Mardanam, and there's one more asura he kills called Pralambasura. This asura takes the form of a Gopala, and he mixed with the rest of them, and he tried to make them believe that he was only another Gopala. So then, of course, Krishna saw through this thing, and so he devised a game. he said we'll have two groups, and we will see. One group will carry the other one, and those who, when they lose, when the game is lost, those who lose have to carry the winners on their shoulders and go up to that tree over there, he said. So they agreed. So Balarama was the head of one group, Krishna was the head of one group, and Krishna, so this Pralamban thought, oh, well, I will also stay in Krishna's group, so that I will first kill him and then I will kill Balarama. Now, Krishna lost to the other group, he said, and he carried his devotee Sri Dama on his shoulder and went to prove how much he loved his devotee. And Balarama carried Pralamba and went off. And after some time, when he was after some time, the Asura took on his huge, enormous form, and Balarama was sitting on top of him, and he looked back at Krishna and said, "What am I to do with this fellow?" So Krishna said, So he gave him one hit on his thing, and Pralamba, of course, died, and that was the end of that story. Then there's a description of the forest, the different seasons which they pass through. Even when it's summer, height of summer, and spring. In spring, of course, it was rather nice, but in summer, when even the height of summer, scorching sun in Vrindavan and so on, If you ever stayed in Vrindavan during summer, you will find how hot it is. But because of the presence of the Lord, these Gopalas never felt anything else. They were in the forest all the time. There were shady trees and the waterfalls and the rivers and his constant encouragement of them. So they never felt the heat of summer with these Gopalas. So they said, then they give the description of autumn, so beautiful. The autumn moon was rising up and the waters become pellucid, or the lotuses started to grow. And it's the most beautiful scene. Thus they pass through these beautiful days of their youth with this lucky Gopalas, with Krishna playing with them all the time. Then at that time, the description of Venugana, how he plays on the flute is given. Maybe we'll have a... Can't. Sorry, it's out, as usual. all the little background music I had planned for such a long time is not meant to be played. Anyway, so you shall listen to my fluent and fluting music of my voice, maybe. So then, during the evenings and in the night, when the moon was rising, Lord Krishna would take his stance. He looked like a dancer, actually. He was so beautiful with this thing of the peacock feather and the red beads on his, the garland of wildflowers, Vanamala around his neck, and the Pitambaram around him, and the flute was there. And he would stand under the tree and start the beautiful, glorious music. He's supposed to have, the raga he sang was supposed to be Mohana raga, actually. So, and we had actually got a bamboo flute playing the Mohana raga, but it's not to be, I suppose. So he used to play on this. And this is a most amazing description, because the call of the flute is not just an ordinary flute. It's a call of the flute of the Paramatma to the Jivatma. Come, 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 says the Paramatma. Why are you dallying about in the marketplace of the world when here I am, the beloved of the cosmic beloved, ever ready to take you, ever ready to give you a bliss which you can never experience in the world. Come to me, come to me, come to me, was the call of the flute. It is said that all creation changed its course. The tree on which you are staying would slowly bend so that they can touch. The Kalindi diverted her course. She was going around there. She diverted to come slowly here, if possible, to have a glimpse, and also to throw some of her lotus flowers at his feet. And the rocks, which are really, they're hard things, they started to melt slowly because they couldn't. The call of the flute, the sound of the flute was like so heartrending that even the stones and rocks started melting and flowing towards him. and all the gods had come up, was also watching, and the birds, it was night, but all the birds started to come and watch him. The cows, which they forgot, they were eating, half the grass was in the mouth, and they forgot that they have to swallow it, because they were struck listening to the music. The moving things became immobile. The immobile things became slowly gyrating, because the call of the Lord was so great. There's no Jivatma which can resist the call of the Paramatma. If only we had the heart and the ears. We have only gross ears. If inner ears are open, we will hear that call, and we will go running to him. And if such a thing was happening in the forest and amongst inanimate creatures, what did it not do to the gopis, who had seen him from as a child, who had loved him from the time he was a child, and watched him grow up and coming into this, because Krishna, though he was only 12 years old, yet the fact is that he was as if he was a totally full-grown human being. So the gopis, who had been longing for him all their lives, now they begged, they wanted to go and listen to his call, but unfortunately at that time they were not capable of going. They were stopped by their parents and so on, and they just thought to themselves, what shall we do now? What is the use of life at all if we can't get him as our husband? Here he is in our midst, and yet we are incapable of going to him. What a wretched life that we have. Then they thought of a brilliant idea, all these young little gopis who decided that they must have Krishna as their husband. They undertook a 41 days vow to the goddess Kartyayani. And that is during the month of, in the past the autumn season, cold month actually. And in that month, you can't get it down? Oh, so let's come back. So let's listen to a bit of Venugayanam before proceeding. It was the autumn season. The mornings were very cold when the gopis decided to take their 41 days vow to the goddess Kartyayani. They used to bathe in the river Kalindi and then come out and worship the Divine Mother with this beautiful mantra, Kartyayani Mahamaye, Mahayogin Yadishwari, Nandagopasudam Devi, Padimme Kurde Mama. O thou cosmic Mother Kartyayani, please grant us our desire to have the son of Nanda as our husband. At the end of their 41 days vow, Krishna himself came there and quickly gathered their clothes which had been left at the banks and climbed up a tree. They begged him to give back their clothes, but he ordered them to come forward with their hands held above their heads and take their clothes. At last, reluctantly, they came forward, and he gave them their clothes and promised to meet them on the full moon day in the forest. This is one of his most misunderstood of his leelas. And actually, the esoteric meaning is so beautiful that we will go into it now. Clothes are a sign of our attachment to our bodies. In India, we have a set of yogis called Avadhutas who wander about totally naked to show that they have no attachment to anyone or anything, not even their bodies. Their attachment is only to God. Krishna had tested the gopis to the limit. Now he wanted to uplift them to the highest state of the Avadhutas. That is why he asked them to give up attachment to everything, including their own bodies, and go to him in their pristine state in which they had been born. This is one of his greatest of his leelas, even though it is most misunderstood by most people. Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Now before that, that's right, before he goes to, he keeps his promise to that. One day, Krishna goes and sees that his Gopalas and his father and all busy making preparations. So he said, what's happening over here? All these nice things you're making. He said, Indra is the one we worship. Every year we have a special worship for Indra because he is the god of rain, and we Gopalas, and we are totally dependent on rain for our sustenance and our very livelihood, because the rain has to fall and the grass has to grow and our cows can eat the grass and we'll get milk and butter and whatever things we need. So naturally we give one day, a festival of Indra. So Krishna laughed. I said, why are you giving to Indra? Indra is not the chap who gives all this. See, this Govardhan, when clouds bearing rain come from the north like that, who stops? And Govardhan stops the clouds and makes them fall on our side, and that's why it becomes nice and green, and you get plenty of grass and all the other things. So this Govardhan is a person you must, hill is a person that you should worship, not Indra. Don't bother about Indra anymore. So then actually Nandagopal was not too happy about this, because he was brought up in the old style, and he knew that Indra could be really mean if he wanted to. And so he said he was a bit, but then his son had, had such miraculous powers, and he was totally, dominated by his son. Very few fathers like to take advice from their son, but then this was a special case, as you can see. So Krishna said, look, I'll tell you, give you a list of the menu I expect for you to make. And he got all the things which he loved. Appam, Ada, Payasam, this Pongal, all the things he loved. He said, make a list of all these things what Govardhan loves, So you bring it, we will all go and do worship to Govardhan. So they made all the nice things which he liked, and they all went up to the Govardhan and they started worshipping the hill. And eventually at the end of the puja, Krishna took on the form of Govardhan, huge form, and gobbled up all the things they brought for him. And then afterwards, as his own little form of Krishna, he said, has Indra ever come and eaten anything you have given to him? Those said, no. Well, see how Govardhan comes and eats all the things that you have made for him. So he's a person, he's the thing you have to worship, not Indra anymore. So then, of course, Indra was really angry when he saw this. He said, look at this little boy. Who does he think he is? That he can thwart the might of a god like me and the king of gods. I will give him a lesson, he said. So then he collected all the rain clouds he could. He had a lot of rain clouds at his command. And so he brought all of them together and started pouring rain on Vrindavan. The whole place slowly it became raining so hard. After some time they couldn't even live in their houses. They started being desperate. And they ran to Krishna, Krishna, help us, look at what's happening now. We listened to you and now Indra is so mad with us and we are going to be drowned very soon. So Krishna said, don't you worry, you have worshipped Govardhan, Govardhan shall be your savior. Come on with me. So all of them, Gopalas, took all the calves and cows and all the little bits of the stuff they had. And off they went to the Govardhan, and it is said that Bhagavan just put his hand under this and lifted it up as easily as he would lift a mushroom. On the little finger of his left hand, he held up like lifting up a mushroom, And the Gopalas and Gopis were so used already to all the miracles he did, they all huddled underneath this thing. And after some time, they just found not even a drop of rain was inside. So as usual, they started their games and laughing and talking and their little games. So they'd play and leapfrog. And so they were very happy with the whole affair. So they were not people who, they were very simple, innocent people. And so they always made the best use of that present moment. And they lived entirely for the present moment. So they were very happy with their circumstances at that moment. So after having done the 7 days and 7 nights, Indra showered, and all his battery of rain clouds was showered on Vrindavan, and he thought to himself, nobody can ever resist my rain. No, just look, even this little child, I'm sure he will be forced to put down the mountain, and I will crush all of them, and I will drown them, all of them. So he was thinking like that, but 7 days he exhausted all the rain clouds he had. I think nowadays, he also has exhausted because you hardly get any rain. So then he didn't know what to do, and when it stopped raining, Bhagwan told all of them to go out, and he slowly put back the Govardhan hill back to its place. This is his famous, that is why he's called Giridhari, the one who holds up the mountain. So then after that they were happily playing around, and there was another episode, I think, of Shankujodale. I don't know. I didn't Shankujodale. Yeah? I don't know. Parna Varnan. Then they find. Then in the meantime they found that this is another. I told you one by one all he shows his victory over all the old ancient gods. You see. So this time it's a Varuna. Varuna has caught his father and taken him to his own place, and he goes to rescue his father in the river. And Varuna actually did this only because he wanted to have a vision of the Lord. So he blessed him and brought his father back. And after that only we come to the Rasa Krida. He had promised, it was the night of the Sharat Purnima, where it was time, and the beautiful moon arose, and Krishna was playing the flute under the... Now, what is the actual esoteric meaning behind this Rasa Leela, Rasa Krida? What is rasa, first of all? Rasa is the essence of anything. The pure essence of anything is rasa. And we know that the Supreme has Sat, Chit and Ananda. Sat and Chit we all know. Sat is existence, we see existence. His form is existence everywhere. As his form is consciousness also we see everywhere. But that Ananda we don't see, but it is because of that Ananda, that drop of honey which is always falling, that even a man who's ridden with cancer, ridden with pain, and in a throes of agony, or somebody has died and a husband has died or wife has died, even such a person still clings on to life. Because of that bliss or that drop or ananda or that rasam which is there. Even in the first verse of the Bhagavatam it is said, Rasika bhuvi bhavuka, who enjoys this, who will enjoy this krida? It is that Rasikas who are going to enjoy. So that is the ras or the essence of life, which if we enjoy, then we are constantly playing Rasa Leela with him. It's a Rasa Krida. How life becomes a Rasa Krida, because we are always playing that game of ecstasy with that Paramatma. If we don't do this, then life becomes a Dukkha Krida, not a Rasa Krida, but a Dukkha Krida. And that's, we have to wallow in sorrow and so on. So that is the esoteric meaning of Rasa Krida, that those who are the union of the Jivatma who's thirsting all her life, is thirsting to get union with that. As we say, as the musk deer runs and runs because he's maddened with this beautiful perfume which is coming, he thinks from outside. He's searching for that perfume. Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? He goes rushing around looking for that perfume. Eventually dies totally unhappy because he never finds the perfume, because it's inside him. It's inside him. That is why he unless he realizes that union with that is the... So as I said, the whole of life is a Rasa Krida, Rasa Leela. If we play with the divine beloved, if we see everything, if everyone we see as that divine, then our whole life becomes a Rasa Krida, not a Dukkha Krida as we are doing now. Again, in the whole cosmos again, this dance that's supposed to be going round. Then, in a temple when we do this pradakshinam of the temple, there's a circumambulation round the temple. That is the deities inside. And we do this round. Why do we do this round? Nobody understands it. Because, that inside the sanctum sanctorum, that is the vibrations which are set are circularly going round. And as we do this pradakshinam or this round, we are caught in this round and round of energy which is, coming out of that central thing. So this is the pradikshinam which we do when we go to a temple. But this is done by only those bhaktas or someone who goes to a temple. They may not be bhaktas really. Most of them are not bhaktas really. They just go to the temple to enjoy something or, to get something out of God via the pujari. So then this pradikshinam, whether we want it or not, willy-nilly we are being made to do. You won't realize how it is. The sun is the center of our universe. All the planets keep going around him. Pradikshinam of that, who the Almighty who's inside that sun is the very, the effulgence which we can see with our eyes. The effulgence of that supreme which we can see is the eyes is the sun itself. So all the planets are going round, and we also, once a year we do a pradikshinam of the sun. Once a year we will complete one pradikshinam of the sun. So whether we want to or not, this pradikshinam, this rasa leela, this play of the jivatma round and round, the Paramatma goes on even without our knowing it. So those who understand and are conscious of this fact, see how much they can gain from that if we are consciously doing that pradakshina without being unconsciously being forced to doing it. So this is the Rasa Krida, and this is the whole setting was mute because Bhagavan, he's a God of love and God of beauty. So therefore, everything he did had to be perfectly beautiful. He himself was so beautiful. He had made him. He would always be made up, and you never see him disheveled or except during Bhishma's studies. But that again, even that was a beauty for him. Anything which even dust or thing on his face was a beauty for him, because he was a Lord of beauty. You see. So then he places himself, that beautiful thing, he's there with his yellow clothes, he's wearing the flute, he's having the flute, and he's the coronet of and peacock feather on his head, and his pours out that enchanting melody is poured out. The gopis had been waiting for this call, even after they had done that 41 days. Wow. They had been just waiting for that call. Oh, again I missed out, no? After the Govardhan, when Indra was this thing, he came down, he thought, and now this boy I was so interested in going to Rasa Krida that I forgot. Why Chitliya? My whole mind is in Rasa Krida. So okay, never mind. I'll just finish the Govardhana Puja. He goes there, and the Indra comes down along with Surabhi, the celestial cow. Indra comes down, and he says he's crowned as Govinda. That's the time in Govinda. That's Govinda Abhishekam which we just had. Surabhi says, nowadays we don't want this Indra anymore. You are our Indra, the Govinda, go. Indra of the cows, Indra of all people also. Now in future you are our Indra. We don't just want this useless fellow anymore. So Indra, begs his pardon, and he gives, she does Abhishekam to him as Govinda, as the king of cows, king of all humanity. Sorry, now I've already done half the Rasa Krida, so it's okay. We can do the rest afterwards.